The father and son were getting along well with each other, sitting in the military Humvee. Daisy had sunk into deep thoughts. She always remembered that on a warm afternoon, the handsome man came into her life, directly walked into her heart. But he might not remember her anymore. What did she ever mean to him? She was very quiet then because she knew she was redundant in the family. Once upon a time, she was also secure and happy like a little princess. But everything had turned differently. Since her mother unfortunately died and her father remarried, she turned into a position even lower than a servant girl. Every day she watched her stepmother made up her own daughter elegant and beautiful. She had to accept the truth that all her beautiful pasts belonged to others now, and her father also became someone else's father. She also cried and struggled, but every time she did, her stepmother, Yakira Mo, just gave her a good beating. From then on, she cried no more but carefully lived every day, because she understood her situation and knew she was no longer the proud princess she used to be. The father who used to love her so much seemed to forget about her since the stepmother gave birth to her little brother. Unfortunately, Yakira Mo and her daughter didn't forget her existence. They tortured her every day in many ways. Once, when she was 16 years old, she accidentally tore her sister Yvonne Ayang's clothes while washing, and her stepsister slapped her on the face. She ached so bad and hid under a big tree in the garden and silently shed tears. I hate the crybabies. They always deal with problems with crying. And I don't like a useless girl, either. Suddenly she heard a voice and raised her head with tears on the face. At that moment, her tears stopped from falling. What a beautiful boy, she thought. As she saw this boy standing against the sun, the rays of light that lit his face made him look so proud, but with so much grace, just like a true prince. At that moment she was stunned by him. Looking at him with tears on the face, she dared not make a sound so as not to disturb the sleeping prince. She worried that this was just a dream. With just one noise, she would wake up from it. Useless girl. The body seemed a little angry and left unpredictably, like the way he appeared. Then she learned that he was the eldest son of Mu family, the legend in S City. She heard that he had a remarkable talent in the business. He was only 22 when he became the acting CEO of FX International Group. The two of them were so different with their life situation. They would never have any chance to get to know each other well, or to even cross paths, she thought. But she inadvertently began to pay close attention to everything that had to do with him. Her heart also slowly fell for him. Although she knew that there was no chance to be with him, she was still strongly attracted to him. In the end, she fled out of the country and entered the military academy she never liked. Because of what this boy told her, I don't like a useless girl. She became the only foreign female graduate who finished military training early within 4 years. She initially thought that she was to stay longer at the academy, but she returned to S City, as she was missing him so badly all those years. However, they still had no chance of meeting each other even if she went home to S City. He was so far from her reach as usual. He was no longer the young boy she first saw 4 years ago, but was now surely a glamorous man. In order to distract herself from thinking of him, she had worked very hard with her training and evaluations and took some very dangerous missions. She made continuous contributions to the army and became a major at a very young age. Unfortunately, she still couldn't ignore the love that was growing like a weed in her heart. Although she lived in the same city with him again, they were still like two parallel lines that would never intersect. However, her love for him had grown into the bones so deep and permeated into the blood. She thought that maybe she would spend all her life just watching him from afar. She had to bury the love which had not even started but already died. But God still favored her and made her become his wife. thanks to her father. If she wasn't his only biological daughter, then it would have not been made possible. She still remembered that Yvonne's eyes were full of anger, because the Mu family only wanted to marry the real daughter of the Yang family, while Yvonne was just a favored stepdaughter. She could still feel her heart pounding in her chest at that moment. She couldn't forget her ecstatic sobs of joy. Finally, she was rescued from desperation. Although she knew she wasn't his favorite woman and that he would never fall in love with her, she still was not able to control her heart to approach him. She could only secretly cheer for herself deep in the heart. It didn't matter that he didn't like her. She would still love him, only if he allowed her to stand by his side. But she still overestimated herself. After getting so close to each other all night long, she became a scheming woman in his eyes. She tried to defend herself, but he didn't even give her any chance to explain. Before he slammed the door as he left her, no one knew how sad she was. No matter how bad she was injured in the army missions, she never felt anything as painful as this. When Edward turned his back on her, she felt that she wanted to flee. His words embarrassed her. She smiled with self-mockery while thinking, though he didn't belong to her, he still gave her such a cute son, a living image of him. She should be satisfied, shouldn't she, Colonel? Staff Gu informed us to meet at the next intersection. The report of the accompanying official Mark Du pulled her back from her thoughts. She shook her head in frustration and blamed herself for missing him unconsciously. Okay, copy that. Daisy replied lastly. She felt so exhausted. She suddenly felt her surroundings turned warm. Colonel, are you sick? You look pale. Mark started accompanying her since he joined the army, so he knew if there was something wrong with her. Don't worry. Maybe it's too hot. I just feel a little bit lazy. Daisy knew she was physically healthy. She felt sad and tired emotionally. She loved him for so many years, but she still couldn't get any closer to him, and he had finally forgotten about her. Will you sleep for a while? There is still 1 hour left before meeting Staff Gu. Mark felt worried, as he seldom saw his Colonel looking so weak. She was always sharp and tough in his eyes. Okay, wake me up when we arrive. Daisy realized that a good sleep was exactly what she needed. She didn't sleep well last night as she thought about the meeting with him today. She also felt nervous in front of him. She indeed needed to close her eyes and clear up her mind. Yes, Colonel. Sleep tight. Mark glanced at her quickly. He knew there was something bothering his Colonel. She looked suddenly different after walking out of the high commercial building. Mark sometimes sympathized with the Colonel who raised her son on her own. He heard that she was married, but her husband hadn't shown up even once after the marriage. So the young soldiers always secretly talked about her. There were many versions. Someone said her husband went abroad and hadn't come back for a long time. There was one who said her husband had a mistress. Another one said her husband was scared of such a strong woman, and so he stayed away from her. And there was someone who even said her husband was too ugly to be brought out to the public. But Mark wanted to say, Justin looked so handsome and cute. How could he have an ugly dad? Mark just thought this way. In his heart, he never joined in their gossip. Normally, he just listened silently, but never commented. He also knew the reason why they were grumbling. The Colonel trained them so hard. Mark slightly turned up the temperature in the car, so that she won't catch a cold while sleeping. She couldn't get sick at this kind of crucial moment, as the following training would be fully enclosed and even more severe than ever. Edward was always boasted about himself. Justin looked at his daddy's red sports car and couldn't help rolling his eyes. Why couldn't this man keep a lower profile? He thought his car shined in bright red, like his own gorgeous appearance. His daddy was a totally different person than her low-key mommy. No wonder that. So far, these two people hadn't lived together. Edward's bodyguard opened the car door. Edward put Justin into the car and fastened the seatbelt for him. It seemed that this was not the first time for him to do such a thing. Do not follow me. I'll drive by myself, Edward ordered coolly while keeping his eyes on the little boy. Master, please let me follow you, Luke Luo requested in a low voice. His life was destined to protect his master. He had trained himself extremely well to do this job. He knew there were many people who were eyeing his master. He needed to be very careful with each step. Well, follow me if you wish. Edward didn't disappoint him. He knew Luke would be worried if he is not around. He always treated Luke as his brother and never regarded him as a bodyguard. So sometimes he would listen to his advice. There weren't many people in KFC, maybe because this wasn't weekend, but the elegant appearance and figure of Edward still captured lots of eyes. Edward ignored the eyes staring at him, found a table, and sat his son in the chair carefully. Sweet, could you wait for me in the chair? Daddy needs to order the food. Edward bent his slender body and consulted with his son. Okay, I'm not scared. He was far away from being scared, but felt a little excited. Mommy normally didn't take him to eat this food because she said this was a junk food. But his daddy didn't know this. So after a long time, when Edward remembered his own words, he had to smile with self-mockery. Yep. His son was even stronger than him. The food was ready. Soon, most of it was Justin's favorite. Of course, there was a little surprise. The waiter was still staring at Edward, which made him very angry. But he controlled his anger with good manners. Is it yummy? Edward smiled at his son while he was enjoying the food. The gentle smile immediately captured so many eyes. Yummy? Mommy never brought me here. She said this was a junk food. Justin mumbled. Edward was choked by his son's words. Knowing this was a junk food, Justin still asked for KFC. Was he joking on him? Well, he didn't mind as Justin looked so happy to be here. He became more and more curious about his little wife. What kind of woman was she? How did she become so cold and indifferent? And why she gave birth to this child without asking anything from him? Just because of his words at that moment, he was forced by his parents to get married. So he wasn't happy with the marriage. He was never against her personally, but unfortunately she became the target of his anger. Later he thought if he was too arbitrary, he knew his parents well. Maybe he had misunderstood Daisy, but he was too proud. Even if he knew that he was wrong, he still wouldn't admit it. He just ignored it as he didn't want to face it. He hadn't cared about his nominal wife for so many years. He even didn't remember her face. Was she pretty or ordinary? He just lived his own life. There was no woman who walked into his heart and attracted him to learn more about her. Uncle. Don't you eat. HMM. Uncle. A good title for him. Justin didn't want to call him Daddy. He was good at acting. That was also why his mommy didn't find that he was such an evil boy. Enjoy your meal. I don't like kids' food, Edward said to himself and frowned. Maybe that woman was right. Indeed, these were junk food. How could adults understand kids' world? That was just the same as that kids didn't understand the way adults think. The yummy food in kids' eyes was junk food for adults. But Justin wouldn't care. Anyway, he was enjoying the food now. When Mommy came back, he had to say goodbye to this delicious food. What if Edward knew what Justin was thinking? Would he be stunned again or just smiled at it? No matter what, there wouldn't be anything funnier than the following accident. As soon as they walked out of the KFC, Luke had driven the car near. Suddenly, Edward's phone rang. He checked the caller ID, hesitated for a second, but finally picked up the call. Hello. Hey. Jessica. What's up? He put Justin into the car and got in. Edward. I miss you. Let's have a dinner tonight. The voice was so coquettish, but Edward was the lady killer, so it didn't work on him. Tonight, Edward glanced at his son. Suddenly he felt a bit awkward, although he didn't realize why. Justin seemed so calm in the car. It looked like he didn't hear the phone. Actually, Justin's little ears stood up as soon as he heard the woman's name. Oh, don't blame him. The woman's name was always related to his daddy's. It was too hard for him to ignore. If his mommy liked him, he would help his mommy to get him back. He didn't care if this man would be his daddy or not, or how many women he was involved with. You promised me last night. Have you forgotten? Jessica asked coquettishly, as she knew how charming her sweet voice was. Well, I'll pick you up tonight. Edward was enamored by her. She had her own way to deal with men. Master, where shall we go? To the company or villa? Luke asked him as soon as he hung up the phone, although he was wondering that when his master got a son at Justin's age, he chose to be silent. He knew that he would know it at the right moment. Drive me to the company first, then take our little master to the villa. I'll be back later tonight. Ask Mrs. Wu to take care of him and pick 2 reliable bodyguards to protect him. Originally, he wanted to come back after work to be with Justin, as he might not adapt to the new environment. But he promised Jessica last night, so he had to leave. Justin to Luke. Double quotes, yes, master. I'll arrange. Don't worry. Actually, Luke was a silent man. He never talked if others didn't start the topic first. Okay, I always trust you. By the way, get a designer to prepare a kid's bedroom and use the best material, Edward commanded. He slightly loosed his tie. Today was too hot. Okay, but which room will be the one for the kid? Luke dared not decide for him, as he knew his master was so profligate. He always brought different women back. If Luke arranged a wrong room, what if Justin saw his doings? The one next to my study. That room is sunny. Edward glanced at him and did not say a word. Finally, Luke understood. The main reason was that the room was far away from his bedroom. But these were just his thoughts in mind. He dared not to say it aloud. Anyway, Edward was his master, wasn't he? They arrived at the company early. Justin was listening to their conversations silently. He didn't comment, but he was carefully following every single word they uttered. Sweetie, why don't you go home with Uncle Luke? I have a meeting tonight. I will come back later. What kind of meeting could it be? Thought the little boy. The truth was Edward just wanted to meet the beautiful ladies. But Edward better be careful, and he shouldn't regard him as a kid just because he was 5 years old. He had secretly determined that he would get Edward back for his mommy, so he would be beside him all the time, defending his mommy's position. No, I don't want to go back. I haven't gotten my laptop yet. Justin found an excuse to stay with him. Why don't you want to go back? I can call my secretary to get the laptop for you right now. Edward was a little annoyed by him. Anyway, I don't want to go back yet. Since my mommy brought me to you, you can't just leave me behind. Jesus. That was to guilt-tripping. He was just asking the boy to go home first. How can he abandon the little boy anyway? I didn't say I would leave you behind. Daddy just has some more work to do, so just go home with Uncle Luke first, okay? I promise I'll go back as soon as I'm done with my work. That was it. God knew how long he could finish his work. With all the women that Edward needed to accompany, when would he be able to finish? Oh well, Justin Moo wasn't that easy to deal with. But I don't want to go back alone. Just please let me go with you. I promise I'll behave and won't disturb your work. Justin blinked pitifully, looking at him. Anybody can try to act cute like so. Although normally he was beyond such a thing. Edward was totally confused. What in the world did Justin want? Firstly, Justin looked very cool and demanding, but now he was acting so cute. Why couldn't he catch up with his mind? But who could refuse such cute little being like Justin? Fine, follow me. But only if he will not go with me tonight. Edward certainly could not refuse the boy. Okay, sweetie, as you wish. Let's go. This time Edward didn't hold him. He got out of the car first and was immediately shocked by the hot weather outside. He grasped the little fleshy hand and took him inside of the building quickly. He was afraid to be melted by the heat and be all sweaty if he stayed outside one more minute. Justin looked at Edward with such awe. Why the need to be so scared of the hot weather? The kid thought. Justin didn't care about such hot weather, as he had gotten used to it. In the army, all the soldiers trained in the sun every day. Edward looked so effeminate. Was he indeed a man? It seemed that Edward was not perfect either. Why? Are you looking at me this way? He could tell the banter in his son's eyes. Yes. He hated the hot weather most, as the feeling of sweating really bothered him. So he always took a bath after he returned from outside during summer. Frankly, it seemed that Edward had a princess syndrome. Justin shook his head without saying anything. He didn't seem to answer Edward's question as they walked directly out of the elevator. He had no time for him in front of the laptop. Justin thought it was not worth it to think about his daddy's behavior. Edward didn't care about Justin's attitude either. The most important thing for him at the moment was to take a shower at once. Justin ran to the laptop directly as soon as he walked into the CEO's office. At this moment, he cared about nothing except for the gadget. So he also ignored his daddy's complaints. Well, in Justin's eyes, he was less useful than the laptop. But was it necessary to act so obviously? Justin started the laptop quickly to check if there were some updated features with this laptop. He focused on it and enjoyed a lot. The happiness was shining on his little face. Anyway, he looked like he would stay there to play. Edward saw the picture when he walked out of the bathroom. He was surprised but soon understood that the boy was so engrossed. He didn't disturb him and sat down to work instead. Actually, was really busy. He had got tremendous work managing such a big company. But he didn't need to handle everything. Many things could be handled by the deputy CEO. That guy was good at dealing with pressure. The deputy CEO was on a business trip abroad at that time. The weather was hot, but the deputy CEO was suddenly so chill. Maybe because Edward was thinking of him. The time quietly passed. Only the sound of repeated tapping on the keyboard and the QQ message prompt tone could be heard. But these sounds bothered Edward. Edward needed complete silence whenever he was working on something. Normally, no one dared disturb him without his permission. Everyone in the company knew this, so they acted very carefully, kept away from him as far as possible in case they made any sound. These rules were completely broken today. Justin said he won't disturb him, but why was he hearing the QQ message prompt again and again? Who on earth was chatting with the little boy? How many words could he possibly know? How could he be typing in so many things? Edward was curious, so he put down the pen and watched him. Justin had big eyes. At that moment, his eyes were full of little tricks. The small red lips were pursed together tightly, and the little face was bright with excitement. The delicate, short hair fell on his forehead, which made him look gentler and less indifferent. His appearance was so much like that of Edward's, but there was something to his face beyond that of his father's. He did take something from his mother's beauty too. Justin seemed to notice someone was staring at him. Suddenly he lifted his head and met Edward's eyes. But he didn't look too surprised as he continued to focus on typing. Actually, his flustered breath and shivering hands exposed his thoughts at that moment. Edward pretended not to notice that. He kept watching him, as he couldn't focus on work anymore. He would like to see how long the little guy could pretend. While thinking of this, he showed a smile, which was evil but damn sexy. Under such gaze, Justin turned nervous. Edward didn't seem to stop. His eyes kept staring at the little boy. Justin admitted that he wasn't so strong as Edward in this aspect. He was not at that level yet. Could you stop staring at me with that erotic look in your eyes? He shook his shoulders as he said this. Then it was Edward's turn to be awkward. How fatherly his eyes were. How did they become scary and erotic in this little guy's eyes? Did he actually know what the word erotic means? How could a little boy use such a word, sweet? Do you know what the word erotic means? Don't use it if you don't know the real meaning. Children mature so early nowadays, It's easy to look it up on the internet. Of course, I know. Justin suddenly turned back to a cool boy and told his daddy, Edward, you're out of style. Don't tell me you are here to check things like that. Edward squinted his deep eyes, looking dangerous. Did your mommy allow you to behave in this manner, boss Moo? Don't talk bad about my mommy, even if you are my daddy. I'm not that bad as you imagined. No matter what they said about him, Justin didn't care. His basis for all things was his mommy. No one would surpass his mommy, not even this man in front of him. Well, Edward realized that Justin was angry. As his little white face turned red somehow, Edward smiled. Is your mommy so good to you? That's why you are defending her like this. Edward never saw Justin cared so much about him. He felt jealous. But how could Edward compare himself with Justin's mommy? He just stayed with him for half a day, while Justin and his mommy had already lived together for so many years. There was nothing to compare. I'm the only male in our family. Of course, I need to protect my mommy. Justin rolled his eyes, expressing that Edward was too stupid to even ask. Edward's heart was stung by these words. That was supposed to be his responsibility, but his son took it for him. It seemed that the woman educated his son well. He felt more interested in her. Knock, knock. Suddenly someone knocked at the door, which saved him from embarrassment. Otherwise, he didn't know how to face Justin. Please come in. Edward never felt so thankful to the one who knocked at his door. Mr. Moo, this is the next schedule, please. Have a look if there are any amendments needed. The executive secretary, Anna, put the itinerary in front of him carefully. Some simple issues. I need you to ask Aaron to attend for me. I need to reserve this evening. It seemed that Mr. Moo would come to the date in the evening for sure. Well, how about the invitation from the Lang family, also passed to Aaron? Could Aaron handle so many things at the same time? Anna felt it was unfair for Aaron. No matter how efficient he was, he only had 2 arms and 2 legs. Edward almost forgot that today was Mr. Lang's birthday banquet. He had to attend without any excuses. Otherwise, the Lang family would complain about him for a long time. But he had only one body. Where would he go? No need. I'll go to the Lang family by myself. Well, he can just go there to show up. No need to stay long. Anyway, he and the Lang family had known each other for a long time. It would be no problem to leave if he needed to. Okay, if there is nothing else, I am leaving now. She glanced at Justin curiously, and then she left the room, apparently. The little boy was just playing on the laptop, but his ears were always on standby, so he won't miss any details of his daddy's conversations. Otherwise, how would he proceed to his next plan? It was late. Edward would like to ensure Justin was all set first. Otherwise, he would blame him again. Sweetie, let's go home now. Will you go out again? The boy asked, "Nonsense. Of course he would. If he won't go out, how could he go to the date?" Edward thought annoyingly. "I have a meeting to attend. I promise I'll go home early," he said. "Daddy, bring me with you," Justin said sweetly. His black eyes were full of excitement. He needs his daddy to bring him, but first he would need to be nice to him. So he called him daddy in a sweet voice. Edward was indeed shocked by him, as he kept calling him Boss Moo and uncle for a whole day. He never expected that he would call him daddy, so he was satisfied finally. And when he came to himself, they were already on the way to the Lang family. Edward was so frustrated. How was he spun by a little boy just by calling him daddy? He sacrificed so much. So, would he date a woman with his son? Justin ignored his father's bitter expression. Anyway, he was so happy. He won the first battle. And the next, Mr. Moo would better have to wait for what's to come. Just enjoy the sumptuous meal I will prepare for you. You will never forget it, quipped the little boy in his head.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share.